Thank you for being here today. We're here today to talk to you all about the self as a cognitive construct. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to first, enumerate the various psychological perspective and concept about the self. Second, analyze the effect of various psychological factors in the formation of the self. And lastly, examine oneself against the different perspective on this lesson and various experiences. Before we proceed, do you have any idea regarding to our topic today? What is lateralization of brain function? Lateralization of the brain function is the view that functions are performed by distinct regions of the brain. For instance, it is believed that there are different areas of the brain that are responsible for controlling language, formulating memories, and making movements. There's a common myth that people's personalities are tied to a dominant side of their brain. Left brain people are supposedly more analytical and mathematical, while right brain people are said to be more creative and artistic. But the truth is, there's no such thing as being a left brain or a right brain person. The brain have two sides called hemisphere, each of which controls certain function. The hemispheres communicate by sending signals across the bundle of nerves, and the middle called the corpus callosum. For most of us, the left side mainly controls language, while the right side mainly controls visual and spatial abilities. That's why people who enjoy the right side of their brain are more prone to get lost interestingly when it comes to movements. Each side of the body controlled by the opposite side of the brain. So the right hemisphere operates the left side of the body and the left hemisphere operates the right side. If, like most people, you're right handed, it's because your left brain is dominant in that area. But overall, we use both sides of our brain equally, whether you're making music or doing math. The left and the right hand hemisphere work together, and personality traits like creativity or analytical thinking involve entire brain, not just one side of it. Something to keep in mind next time you hear that you're using only half your brain. What is psychology?
Psychology is a new field in the social sciences that mainly focuses on the individual rather than the structures of society as a whole. It is interested in the functions and processes of the brain, the mind, as well as the behavior related to the mental functions of a person. Theories about the self and the personality are commonly studied by the psychology students, but we took a lot of some of the most popular theories using experimental and clinical observations and scientific techniques. Psychologists have contributed to a lot of perspective about what it means to be a person. Abstractions. The concept of self in psychology is at times interchangeable with other similar terms. Sometimes a framework or school of thought would look at we can describe as one aspect of a self as its focus. An overview of significant terms is therefore necessary. For a working definition in this lesson, let us look at the self as a sense of personal identity and who we are as individuals.
Own self within. William James was one of the earliest psychologists to study the self and conceptualize he conceptualized the self as having two aspects, the I and the me. The I is the thinking, acting, and feeling self. while the me, on the other hand, is the physical characteristic as well as psychological capabilities that makes who you are. Carl Rogers' theory of personality also used the same terms, the I as the one who acts and decides, while the me is what you think or feel about yourself as an object. Ang self daw ma'am kay naay duha ka aspect which is the I and me. Ang I is kanang mag-una-una, nilihukan, ug ang pagbati sa kaugalingon. Ang me kay mao daw ni ang pisikal nga katangian ug kakayanan nga nag-ila sa isa ka taog si kinsa gyud siya. Muna siya ang theory ni William James. Kang Carl Rogers nga theory sa about personality is same lang. Aw higamit lang siya og same nga terms. The I is mo daw nitong mo act og mo decide. While katudang me is mo daw nitong magunahuna ka or sa imong maunanaan or imong ma-feel sa imong kaugalingon as an object. Other concepts similar to self are identity and self-concept. Identity are composed of one's personal characteristic, roles and responsibilities as well as affiliation that define who one is. Self-concept is basically what comes to your mind when you are asked about yourself. Ang other concepts similar to the self are identity and self-concept. Ang identity daw ma'am is nag-compose ni siya sa isa ka personal characteristics sa isa ka tao, ang iyang roles, ang iyang responsibility, as well as kanang nag-member bitaw siya sa isa ka organized or isa siya ka varsity player or inana nga nag-ila kung si kinsa gyud siya. Tapos ang self-concept daw ma'am is mo daw ni ang musunod sa imong utop kung pangutan-on ka about sa imong kaugalingon. Self-identity and self-concept are not fixed. For example, when asked about who you are, you can say, I was a varsity player in grade 5, which pertains to be the past. A college student, which may be the present, and a future politician, which in the future. Ang identity o ang self-concept ma'am is wala daw na fix, wala na tarong. For example, kung pangutan-on daw ka kung si kinsa ka, moingon na daw ka, I was a varsity player in grade 5. Which means nga kani siya is ang past. Kung mga siya college student, ang present. Kung mga siya future player or future politician, which means ang future. Sometimes, while they are not fixed, they are also not very fluid. Think of a malleable metal, strong and hard, that can be heated and hammered to any shape, yet retain its core elements. Samtang wala daw sila na plastar ma'am, dili po daw sila yung nga lain tanawon o lain paminawon or gamiton. Mura og kanang metal nga gahi og kanang hard, pwede dukdukon, pwede painiton or pwede bahalag unsa nga shape, pero ang yang core nagpabilin. Carl Rogers captured this idea in his concept of self-schema, our own organized system or collection of knowledge about who we are. Si Carl Rogers daw ma'am ang naka-capture ani nga idea sa concept sa self-schema. Molda niya ang atong own organized system or mga nakulik nga knowledge about sa atong kaugalingon. Like hobbies, family, religion, and nationality mo daw ni ang nakapalibot sa atong kaugalingon. The schema is not limited to the aforementioned example. It may also include your interests, your work, your course, your age, your name, and your physical characteristic, among others. As you grow and adapt to the changes around you, they also change, but they are not passive receivers, as they actively shape and affect how you see, think, and feel about other things or the people around you. Ang schema ko no ma'am katong nasulti ni atong gi capture ni Carl Rogers about sa self schema is dili kuno limitado. Nag-include kuno siya sa interes, trabaho, kurso, edad, ngalan ug physical characteristics among others. Nya samtang mag-grow kuno ang isa ka tawo ug ma-adapt na niya ang mga changes nga naa sa iyang palibot, katong napod sa iyang mga palibot is magbag-o pod. Pero dili sila ingon nga passive receivers nga kanabitong maapektuhan nila ang the way nga mo matan-aw nimo ang isa ka butang, mauna-unaan, ma-feel labi na mga tao nga nagpalibot sa imuha. For example, when someone states your first name, even if not talking about you, your attention is drawn. Even if you have if you have a provincial language and you hear someone using it, it catches your attention. If you consider yourself a book lover, a bookstore may always entice you out of all the other stores in a mall. These are all part of your schema working on your behavior and attitudes. For example daw ma'am, if naday isa ka taong magsulti sa imong ngalan, bisag dili ikaw ang giistoryahan, matingala ka nga nganong giingon imong ngalan, imong attention is na-draw na murag na-catch na imong attention ma'am. And kung na kay provincial language, praning Bisaya, nya na kay nadunggan ganin ang gamit ani, imong attention is masalo. Makan ka nga la, nakoy kaparihag gigamit nga lingwahe. And if i-consider nimo imong kaugalingon as a book lover, ang bookstore kuno ma'am, maro daw kanya kakiton nga kanang dito ra ka moadto o magbalit bisag daghay mga mall nga nagpalibot. Modo ni siya ma'am ang part sa self-esteem nga nagtrabaho sa imong kinaiya o batasan. Theorists generally see this concept of self and identity as mental constructs created and recreated in memory. Current research points to the frontal lobe of the brain as the specific area in the brain related with the process of the self. Theories generally, ang mga theories ko ma'am, nakita ko nila ang concept sa self ug identity as a mental construct nga nahimo og na-recreate sa memory. Ang current nga mga research ma'am kay gitudlo nila ang frontal lobe sa utok nga as the specific area sa brain nga naka-relate sa pag-process sa kaugalingon. Several psychologists, especially during the field's earlier development, followed this trend of thought by looking deeper into what they think was the mind. Gisundan daw ni nila nga trend ma'am nga thought sa pamaagi nga pag deep down sa ilang ginhauna nga nagtuo sila nga modo ni ang utok by looking deeper into what they think was the mind. The most influential of them is Sigmund Freud. Basically, Freud conceptualized the processes, construct, and behavior of the self as the result of the interaction between the ID, the ego, and the superego. Si Sigmund Freud ma'am, which is the most influential sa mga psychologists, modo ni siyang nag-conceptualize sa mga proseso sa pag-construct ug ang behavior sa kaugalingon nga nagresulta sa interaction between the identity, the self-importance ug ang self-critical conscience. However, one cannot fully discount the effects of society and culture to the formation of the self, identity, and self-concept. Even as Freud and other theorists and researchers try to understand the person by digging deeper into the mind, they cannot fully discount the huge and important effects of the environment. This is not nature versus nurture, instead a nature and nurture perspective. However, kung ma'am ang isa kuno ka tao is dili kaya ma-fully discount ang effects sa society, pati na pod ang culture sa formation sa kaugalingon, ang iyang identity o ang iyang self-concept. Even nga si Freud o ang mga other nga theories o mga researchers, gitry nila pagsabot ang isa ka tao, pinaagi nga pag digging deeper sa una-una, digging deeper into the mind. Pero di gyapon nila ma-fully discount ang huge ug ang important effects sa environment. daw ni siya isa ka nature versus nurture, instead a nature and nurture perspective. Internal and external. If we can remember the previous lesson, George Herbert Mead of the symbolic interactionism argued that human interaction helps develop the self. The result of this interaction between who we think we are and how others see us is what others call self-concept. Sometimes we are aware about these things. A lot of times, we do not know that we are actually doing what is expected of us. Kani daw ma'am is si George Herbert Mead of the symbolic interactionism. Gi-argue niya ma'am nga ang human interaction nakatabang sa pagdevelop sa self. Nga resulta ng interaction between who we think we are and how others see us is ginatawag nila nga self-concept. Usay daw ma'am nga aware na ta about ani nga mga butang kapila na kabisis pero wala ta nakabalong nga ginabuhat ani nato kung na-expect sa atoa. Carver and Skeer identified two types of self that we can be aware of. One is the positive self or person's internal thoughts and feelings, and two, the public self or what the person commonly shows to the others, especially for creating a good public image. Carver and Skeer ma'am is nag-identify sila duha ka types of self that we can be aware. Ang isa is the private self or a person's internal thoughts and feelings, mura siya og introvert, and ang ikaduha is the public self or what a person commonly shows to the others, especially for creating a good public image like extroverts. Ngana. Self-awareness also present us with at least three other self-schemas: the actual, the ideal, and the out self. The actual self is who we are at the present. The ideal self is who we like to be, especially in the future. And the out self is who we think we should be in contrast to the actual self. Ang self-awareness ta ma'am is nagpresent ni siya og at least tulo ka buok nga self-schemas: the actual, the ideal, and the out self. Ang actual nga self ma'am is mo daw ni ang this is who we are at the present. Kabali ang karon mo daw ni kita ang sa karon. Ang ideal is who we like to be labi na sa future, and the out self is who we think we should be in contrast to the actual self, like mura siya past ma'am. Yan na. Example is that you are a student interested in basketball but are also academically challenged in most of your subject. Your ideal self might be to practice more and play with the varsity team, but to pass your subject as a responsible student, one has to find solutions to such discrepancies in order to avoid agitation, dejection, or other negative emotions. In some instances, however, all three may be in line with another. Example ko na ni ma'am, isa daw ka estudyante nga interested sa basketball pero na academically challenged daw ka sa most sa imong mga subject. Imong ideal self ma'am kay mag-practice og insakto og makadula kauban ng varsity team pero gusto nimo nga makapasar sa imong mga subject as a responsible student. Na kuno isa nga mangita og solusyon in order nga into such discrepancies in order nga maka-avoid sa agitation, dejection, or any other negative emotions like depression nga ng mga negative man para ma-avoid. And in some instances kanidong tulo is maybe in line with one another, like masagol. Self-awareness may be positive or negative depending on the circumstances. And our next course of action, self-awareness can keep you from doing something dangerous. It can help you remind you that there is an exam tomorrow in one of your subjects when you are about to spend time playing computer games with your cousins, among others. Self-awareness daw ma'am, ang self-awareness daw ma'am kay pwede ma-positive, pwede po ma-negative, depende sa circumstances ma'am, og ang atong course of ang atong sunod nga course action. Ang self-awareness daw ma'am can kay makadabang din siya sa imong kaugalingon nga para aboy nimo ang pagbuhat og mga butang nga delikado. Maka-remind po ni sa imo nga uy ugma exam na di ay makatabang ni siya sa mag-remind nga na kay buhaton ugma tong time nga miskay magdula na kag computer sa imong amigo or mga cousins na namduman nimo nga na kay buhaton ugma mo daw ni ang tabang or ma-contribute sa self-awareness ma'am. In other instances, self-awareness can be too much that we are concerned about being observed and criticized by others, also known as self-consciousness. Ang self-awareness po daw ma'am kay pwede po daw ni siya sobrahan. Nga ka na bitong ma-concern ta nga ay ambot ni mo bayot oy. In other instances, self-awareness can be too much that we are concerned about being observed and criticized by others, also known as self-consciousness. At other times, especially when large crowds, we may experience the individuation or the loss of individual self-awareness and individual accountability in groups. A lot of people will attune themselves with the emotions of their group, and because of the large crowd also provide some kind of anonymity, they may lessen their self-control and act in ways that they will not do when they are alone. A common example is a mass demonstration erupting into a riot. In other instances daw ma'am, ang self-awareness kay pwede po daw ni siya nga murag manobra nga maabot na sa point nga concerned na daw sa tao samtang siya kay gina-observe o gina-criticize sa uban. Ginatawag ni siya ma'am og self-consciousness. Na po yung uban times mga kanang na mga dagag tao maka-experience ang isa ka tao og the individuation or kanang the loss of individual self-awareness and individual accountability in groups. Anxiety man siguro ni ambot lang. The loss of individual self-awareness and individual accountability in groups mo daw na ma-experience sa isa ka tao pag na time nga daghay tao. A lot of people will attune themselves with the emotions of their group, and because of the large crowd also provide some kind of anonymity, they may lessen their self-control and act in ways that they will do not when they are alone. A common example is a mass demonstration erupting into a riot. Daghan kuno yung mga tao mga nag-attune silang kaugalingon with emotions sa ilang kagrupo because kadaghan sa tungod sa kadaghan sa tao nga provide og some kind of anonymity nga mag-lessen sila ang self-control og mag-act na din sila sa ilang kaugalingon mga dili nila ginabuhat pag sila ra isa. Common daw nga example ni ma'am is a mass demonstration erupting into a riot, magkagubot riot mo na siya ang common example ma'am.
Self-esteem. Self-esteem describe a person's overall subjective sense of person worth of value. In other words, self-esteem may be defined as how much you appreciate and like yourself regardless of what the circumstance. So ang self-esteem daw is simply ang pagsalig sa kaugalingon or self-confidence. Group identity and self-awareness also affect our self-esteem, which is defined as our personal positive or negative perception or evaluation of ourselves. One of the ways in which our social relationship affects our self-esteem is through social comparison. According to the social comparison theory, we learn about ourselves in appropriateness of our behavior as well as our social status by comparing aspect or ourselves with the other people. Ang self-esteem daw is important because it will influence sa imong mga desisyon o choices sa kinabuhi. Kung taas ka og self-esteem, naa kay confidence nga mopili og tama nga desisyon or choice sa imong life. The downward social comparison is the more common types of comparing ourselves with others. As the name implies, we create a positive self-concept by comparing ourselves with those who are worse off than us. By having the advantage, we are able to raise our self-esteem. Another comparison is the upward social comparison, which is comparing ourselves with those who are better off than us. While it can be formed what motivation for some, a lot those who do this actually felt lower self-esteem. We highlight more of our weakness or inequality. Take note that this occurs not only between individuals but also among groups. Thus, a person's group is performing better, is acknowledged more than the other group, then his or her self-esteem may also be heightened. Social comparison also intends what is called self-evaluation, maintains theory which state that we can feel threatened when someone outperforms us, especially when that person is close to us, that is a friend or family. In this case, we actually react in three ways. First, we distance ourselves from that person or redefine our relationship with them. Ang self-esteem daw, ma'am, is important because it will influence sa imong mga desisyon ug choice sa kinabuhi. Kung taas kag self-intent, kuan daw, ma'am, a low self-esteem can reduce a quality of person's life in many different ways, including negative feelings. The constant self-criticism can lead to persistent feelings or sadness, depression, anxiety, angry, shame, or guilt. Some will resort to silent treatment or change of friends, while some may also define by being closer to that person, hoping that some association may give him or her to certain kind of acknowledgement also. Second, we may reconsider the importance of the aspect or skill in which we were performed. If we got better in drawing, we might that drawing is not really for us, and we will find a hobby where we could excel, thus pursuing our self-esteem. Lastly, we may also strengthen our resolve to improve that certain aspect as ourselves. Instead of quieting drawing, we might join seminar, practice more often, read books about it, and some elements in our drawing that makes it unique, and so on. Achieving your goal through hard work may increase your self-esteem too. However, in the attempt to increase or maintain self-esteem, some people become narcissistic. Narcissism is a trait characterized by overly high self-esteem, self-admiration, self-centeredness. They are often charismatic because of how they take care of their image, taking care for better partners between acquaintances as well as people who will appreciate them a lot. This makes them a bad romantic partner or friend since they engage in relationship only to serve themselves. Sometimes there is a thin line between high self-esteem. There are a lot of us tests as measurement for self-esteem like the Rosenberg scales, but the issue is that result can be affected by the desire of the person of portray himself or herself in a positive or advantageous way. In case you really want to take test and find a miracle value of level of your self-esteem. Try to be honest and objective about what you feel and see about yourself. True self-esteem is a very important concept related to the self. Studies have shown that it only has a correlational, not causality, to positive output and outlook. It can be agreed that high or healthy self-esteem may result to overall and good personality, but is not and should not be the only source of person's healthy perspective of himself or herself. People with high self-esteem are commonly described as outgoing, adventurous, and adaptable in a lot of situations. They also intimidate activities and building relationship with people. However, they may also dismiss other activities that does not conform to their self-concept or boost their self-esteem. They may also be bullies and experiment of abusive behavior with drugs, alcohol, and sex. This duality in the behavior and attitude only proves that a correlation Mr. Smart and Bowden in their research on self-esteem concluded by programs, activities, and parenting styles to boost self-esteem should only be for rewarding good behavior and other achievements, not for the purpose of merely trying to make children feel better about themselves or to impress them when they get angry or sad. So mo to no, to conclude, research result show that ang pagpapakita ng pakinabang ng resulta ng positibong pagpapahalaga sa sarili na nakikitang nauugnay sa kagalingan ng isip, kaligayahan, pasasayos, mga tagumpay sa akademiko at kasiyahan.